from a relatively in shape standpoint. So I mean, I think that in and of itself has changed a lot of things. They also take a boatload of players now to spring
Very
training.
True. Yeah.
When they didn't take that many before. I think there's more money in the game. The fact that there's more money in the game allows them to spend more on spring training. Of course, the fact that they've also built all those great new ballparks in spring training, the way they've done around the major league ballparks, help. There's a real interest in fans going out and spending a lot of money at these fun ballparks. So I mean, money and the players being in the shape that they're in, and when they get there, I think it's the main thing that's changed the game.
Kadire always told me spring training is just for the pitchers. I could get ready in 2 weeks. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, pretty much true. Spring training is all about the pitchers.
Yeah.
And as we were talking a little bit but before we started the podcast, pretty much ready in 10 days. Then you take another 10 days to kind of get the swing right where you want it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got 2 weeks or so of saying, man, let's start the season. I don't want to. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose what I got going here. That's when it gets tough. As soon as you're ready from a hitting standpoint, you want to go, and you got at least 2 more weeks to let the pitcher stretch out.
I also remember standing behind the cage a few years ago, and some guy, just an average pitcher, was just breaking bats and sawing people off early in live batting practice. And I ended up talking to Kadire again. We'd talked a lot around the cage, and he said, "You know what? He didn't say off the he said, just between me and you, the reason these guys look so good is these major league hitters need adrenaline to hit." He said, "You throw me an 88-mile-an-hour fastball now, and it'll break my bat. You throw me a 92-mile-an-hour fastball in the heat of the battle, and I'll hit it over the fence."
Yeah, there's an awful lot to that. The other thing is when the pitchers out there, in your mind, that he's not really as into it as he would be if it was a real game situation during the season, and consequently you don't really have all that much confidence that he A, knows where it's going, or B, cares.
Yeah.
He's trying, but if he tries to come inside, so there's no adrenaline, there's no upside for a hitter.
No.
There really isn't, and so it's just like, really, I'm trying to get my stroke down, and this guy's not into this at all.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. So excited every time there's another step. It's like you're excited to see the players report, and then you can't wait for live batting practice because it's something different. Then you see live batting practice, you can't wait for the first spring training game. Then you watch the first spring training game, you go, oh yeah, I forgot, these games stink. And you can't wait for the first real game. You're just always waiting for the next stage. And you just always have to remember, I'm standing in the sun in Florida, it doesn't really matter, I wanted to get into the subject of hitting coaches with you because I'm going to throw my theory out at you. This has become a football world, like it or not. Football is undeniably popular, and the football mentality is everything's compartmentalized, and therefore you have somebody to blame for everything. When I started covering the NFL in 1989, people didn't blame the offensive and defensive coordinator for stuff. They just blamed the head coach. It was simpler. Now everybody wants to figure out exactly which coach to blame for everything that goes wrong, and I think we have seen that applied to hitting coaches now. Team struggles, it's got to be the hitting coach. Team hits well, it's got to be. I don't think it's a very linear relationship there. I'd like your input on that.
There's no question, that you're right about that. The hitting coach job right now, in my opinion, is the hardest job on the team.
Yeah.
Because he's the first one to go.
Yep.
It's so easy to say, well, we just didn't score enough runs.
Yep.
It's got to be the hitting coach's fault. And it's interesting timing that you should ask me that, because not only do I have some of my own thoughts about that, but I was just back a couple of weekends ago. I was back in the New York area for a New York Yankee and other great player, Hall of Fame player, card show. went back and signed autographs, and there was a bunch of guys I really enjoyed seeing again and talking with. One of which was Chris Chambliss. Talked to for a long time. Chris and I sat for a long time talking about hitting coaches, and he was a hitting coach for the Yankees not long after he retired, and then he was the hitting coach a year or two ago for a couple of years for the Seattle Mariners.
Yep.
And he got fired before the season last year. He got somebody else. And I said, man, tell me about that, because you look at that Seattle Mariner lineup, they didn't have anybody.
No.
Before Robinson Cano, and a year before that, before Kendrys Morales, when he was still, when he hadn't sat out for 8 months and was a good hitter. I mean, they had nobody. They had the Seager kid at third base that was clearly going to be a good hitter. But you can't have one young hitter in a lineup.
No.
I mean, you need help around you. I mean, guys got to have some. You got to have some veteran leadership in the lineup to help. And Chris didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
And he's trying to help these guys. And so I said that's had to be the toughest job ever. He goes, and he didn't whine about that, but he said, everything that I just said is absolutely true. But he said when I got the Yankee job, Wade Boggs was there, and Mattingly was there, and Pagliarulo was there, and he said I went up to those guys as the new Yankee hitting coach, and they came to me and said, look, each one individually said, look, here's the way I do things. Here's what feels really, really great. And if you see me doing this, you grab me and tell me I'm doing that, not doing this other thing, and then I'll know what's going on. So Chris had the great luxury right out of the gate to work with these great veteran hitters that already knew about themselves, knew how they were successful, what made them unsuccessful, and how to get it back, right? And they said, you watch me closely. If you see me doing this, you grab me by the chest, right, by the uniform shirt. So he said, I developed, I watched that and watched all these great hitters. Now I go to someplace else, and he said, I can't have a hitting philosophy. How do you have a hitting philosophy? Everybody's different.
Right.
Boggs was different than Pagliarulo, than Mattingly, than Gary Sheffield.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody's different as a veteran hitter. So guys are going to be different as young hitters too. Now, I talked earlier about getting to that one spot where the bat meets the ball that you've got to get there. And I started to talk to Mike Pagliarulo too. I've known Pags for a long time, and he'd been a minor league hitting coach for the Pirates. I asked him about this stuff, what he thinks. And he said, we had a guy, Polanco, and he said he's a big, athletic, long-legged guy. Now, should I talk to him about, when I play with Puckett, this is what he did, and this is what he said, this guy was built more like Winfield than Puckett, right? So he said, I got out film. I found film of Winfield and of other tall guys. He says here's the way I think you got to do it. Use your legs in this way for a tall, athletic guy. Mm-hmm. And he said everybody's different in that way. So I got the biggest kick talking about hitting with those guys, and it just kind of substantiated what I feel about hitting. What you're saying is that, as a hitting coach nowadays has to be sound mechanically and understand how to get to the right hitting position. But they got to be able to adapt to the skills, both the hand strength, forearm strength, big muscle strength of a player, stature, and not even to talk about whether a guy can handle it mentally when he walks up to the plate, whether he knows what the pitcher's trying to do to him, whether he can sit on a pitch or not, whether the pitch surprises him that I just told you that's what he's going to throw you, and now you take it right down the middle. Yep. What was that about? You got all of this stuff, and now the guys don't hit, and you go, get a new hitting coach, because he'll be the guy that knows how to do all this stuff, plus has a master's degree in psychology. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, Paul Molitor's one of the smartest hitters I've ever been around. He got fired as hitting coach.
How's he going to teach what he knew? He can't. How did Rod Crew? Rod Crew
got fired as a hitting coach.
He can't. Rodney can't teach what he did. Nobody can do what Rodney did.
Yeah. So I don't know. It does drive me crazy, because I really do see the general fan adopting the football philosophies and trying to apply them to baseball. Joe Vavra came under fire you look back at Joe's career, and listen, I have no idea how good Joe is at his job. I don't know how to measure that. All I know is that when he was the hitting coach, Maurer won 3 batting titles, Morneau won an MVP, Maurer won an MVP, Kubel had his best years. I don't know how much Joe should get credit for that, but I don't think he should automatically be the guy who gets blamed if the team goes downhill.
I think Joe Vavra was a very good hitting coach. I think Tom Brunansky is a very good hitting coach. I don't think they lost anything at all. I spent most of last season when I was at the ballpark sitting around the batting cage inside, underneath, watching Tom Brunansky work with guys. Stood around in the batting cage outside on the field watching him work with guys. And I think he's a really, really complete package about working with guys, about mechanics, working with guys about approach to a certain pitcher, the pitcher that's pitching that night, and trying to help guys through their, through the brain cramps that accompany, trying to hit in the big leagues. I thought Joe was good at that too. Bruno, I thought, did a really nice job of adapting to certain guys on the fly. Yeah. And, I thought I think both those guys are really good. I really like what Bruno did last year. And, I don't think that he should be the guy getting fired if they don't right. hit. It's not Bruno's fault if fans want Joe to hit 25 home runs and he doesn't. Yeah. There are limitations, but I really do think that Bruno's got him on the right track for this particular group of personalities that they have.
Right. Last question of the podcast. I appreciate you being here, Roy, as always. This is what I've heard from other people in the organization. I'm interested in your take on it. What I heard from other people in the organization was Tom's first year as hitting coach, if anything, he might have been a little too hyperactive. He wanted to succeed so badly that he wanted to make things happen every day, and he might have freaked out some young players. And I heard that last year he was much calmer. He was much more willing to let a guy have a bad day or two and let the guy realize that he needed help. He wasn't quite as proactive. Does that make any sense to you?
I think the question makes sense. The two approaches, maybe. I will tell you that I'm a little hard on players in that sense.
Yeah.
This is your job.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you be excited about it? Why wouldn't you be a little manic about it? Why wouldn't you want to improve every single day?
Right.
All right. Laying that aside, if it works better for these particular personalities to ease back, throttle back, not make it seem like it's such a big doggone deal, okay, fine. To me, it was always a big doggone deal, and if I had a hitting coach that felt that way, boy, I was going to be all about that guy. So, all of us, but that's just an example of how everybody's different. And if that's true, I don't know. I'm not saying it was true. I know Tom was very enthusiastic first year, very excited. I loved what he did. I think he did back off a little bit. Do I think he should have? Not for me.
Yeah.
But if he should have for his players, and if that is in fact what happened, good for him.
And the last point I'll make on this topic, and then we'll wrap this thing up, is I know, I watched Torrey Hunter. And for some reason, Torrey, and I love Torrey as a guy, for some reason Torrey never really clicked with hitting coaches at the major league level in the Twins organization. He just didn't. So he would watch his own tapes. He would call his own guy. He would send his tapes to his own. To me, it is incumbent upon the player to find something that works. The hitting coach is not going to be perfect for everyone on the roster. He's just not.
Right.
So if the hitting coach, if you're a major league player and the hitting coach just isn't on the same wavelength as you, it's still incumbent upon you to find something that works.
I defy any hitting coach to look at Danny Santana's stance and approach at the plate and say, yeah, I know exactly how to help you. I mean, that's totally different. And that's more of I think Paul Molitor might have a better chance. That no stride, very little movement, really fast hands. I don't know how the hitting coach works with a guy like that. Yeah. He's going to have to find that. You work with that guy up here between the ears probably. Right. You work with approach. Here's what they're trying to do to you. Recognize that. But to your point, I mean, you can't fix everybody. To Chris Chambliss's point, you can't have a hitting philosophy that works for everybody.
Right, Roy. I really appreciate it. Great stuff
talk about
as always. You got a quick pick. Got something you want to throw out there that you've listened to lately?
No. I just think one of these times we're going to.
Well,
I'm going to have to quit getting so excited about baseball.
Well, we know once we get into baseball, the time's really going to fly. So next time we'll start off with some either music or golf, and then we know we're going to get to baseball eventually.
Sounds good.
But so many things I love talking to you about. I really appreciate it. Give me your business name again in case anybody wants to go invest their millions.
Well, it's the Smalley Smith Group at Morgan Stanley. It's very simple.
Awesome. Thanks again. We'll do it again soon. That's
Thanks,
Roy
Jim.
Smalley. This is Jim Souhan. This is SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. Again, if you want a gift card to the Timberwolves gift shop, come by, tell me Roy Smalley can hit, and I'll give it to you. Otherwise, we'll have a trivia quiz here to give these away very shortly at Kieran's Irish Pub. Again, I'm at Kieran's tonight. Friday, O'Gara's 5 to 6. Then my band plays 7:30 to 9 at O'Gara's Shanty. Next week, Wednesday, 5 o'clock at the local with Michael Russo, Star Tribune hockey writer. Thanks for listening.